Hello, welcome to Awesome Radio 106.9 FM on your radio dial. You're listening to Real Talk for Real Men, and we are so glad to be with you today. Today we're going to talk about setting goals. We are in the new year, and there's so much been going on. And one of the things on my mind since we are talking to men, what do y'all think about the whole debacle about the young man that was playing football and his heart stopped on the field? What you think about that?
Well, good morning. This is Elder Nat Farrow,
Right.
Kingdom of Heaven Ministries. And
Yes. Well, look, let me go and do that. I'm Pastor Trey Forbes from Kingdom of Heaven Ministries, and Elder Nat Farrow just spoken. We also have with us
Pastor Dan Lawson, United Gospel Outreach.
Okay, go ahead, Elder. I'm sorry.
okay. Anyway, I'll speak a little bit to that. It's sad, and it's we just need to keep him in our prayers. I mean, he was doing what he wanted to do. He was living out his dream, and it was kind of a fluky thing. I don't think it was like so much the hit or anything, but that's what I think some good conversation has come up around that because, I was listening to one brother that's part of the negotiating, thing for the players. They really need better issues when it comes to their health care. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Need to push that and people that talk about the money that they get paid. All players are not in that multi-billion-dollar category. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I shouldn't say billion, but million-dollar category. The average player isn't, and so I think it's an ongoing battle with labor and the owners. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't. When somebody's getting the money, I don't have no problem with it because they're actually putting their lives on the line when they go out and play the game.
I totally agree.
Everybody loves.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that people should actually. I think they should get paid their insurance should be paid for life. That's one sport your insurance should be paid for life.
Well, if you get hurt while you're doing your job, I mean, it's not your expense anyway, is it?
Shouldn't be. And I think that sometimes we've seen from a lot of studies that they have issues that go on years after. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And the concussions and people that have just life jarred up. And I think that they should have to pay for that. That should be something where you just automatic pay for life. They got the money.
Yeah, football players are probably some of the healthiest athletes in the world. Well, there are some issues, health issues, that no matter how healthy you are, these particular issues has nothing to do with how healthy you are, like the rhythm of your heart. There are some people that are born with a abnormal rhythm, with their heart, and there's no amount of exercise or strength or conditioning that you can do to correct that. And there was some talk about maybe the impact of the hit, which was not a vicious hit. As far as I know, I mean, based on what I saw, it was not a vicious hit. As a matter of fact, he was the aggressor because he was trying to tackle the guy. And all runners, whether they be running backs or wide receivers, it's typical for them to lower their helmet. I mean, that's a given in many cases. But it sounds like, at least in one doctor's opinion, that the impact knocked off the rhythm of his heart, and that because of that, his heart stopped beating for a period of time. And I mean, it's sad. It looked like they responded. I mean, as far as I could tell, they responded, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
As soon as they knew something was wrong. It was hard to tell that there was something wrong because he stood up
Yeah.
But then when he collapsed after he stood up, I think that's when everybody realized, wait a minute, this is serious.
Yeah, and I think everybody responded quickly. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things that actually saved his life. I mean, even the players saw it. Player was pointing, and they came on and gave him CPR, and then they brought in the defibrillator, and all that stuff happened quickly. And I think that was a good thing that they have that stuff, available. But I can't think of the name of the thing. I was listening to it. I heard a couple of doctors talk about it. But it was kind of that unique thing that it got hit just at the right time. That you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they say it usually don't happen in football. It happens more when something like baseball or something, when there's a fastball hit them. So it's just a sad thing, but it's bringing attention to a lot of things, and we just have to pray for the brother that he eventually comes out of it.
Yeah, they talk about, quite naturally, everybody know about his fundraiser now. And I saw where somebody was saying, well, why do people got to wait till something bad come before you do thus, and thus for somebody? But the thing is, some things come with exposure. A lot of people didn't know who he was until, this accident. And then also, there's a whole lot of, during the Christmas time, there's probably over 1 million organizations, to be quite honest with you, or close to it, that are looking for, different things. But certain things create a crisis and, circumstances for people to step in and to help.
Well,
I'll say one other thing. Oh, go ahead.
Well, people have the attitude that, if you're going to go out there and put yourself at risk, a lot of times that lowers the level of compassion that they have for you until something like this happens. Then all of a sudden they're very concerned about you. And that's kind of comes with the territory that you are putting yourself at risk when you play football. That's becoming more and more knowledgeable to most people, as we move on. But it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it ain't going nowhere.
That is true.
I was just going to say that it's a good thing, they had a little controversy about, them calling the game and all that stuff. To me, it looked like it was the players. The players just wasn't going back out there.
No, they continued to suffer even in the locker room. It was
the players. I think the players called that. I mean, the NFL, they spoke up afterwards, but it was the players said we're not able to go back out here to do this.
Yeah, like that, and right there, you better get real sharp and figure.
Yeah.
Now we can't muscle them to do it.
They actually mixed the locker room. Some of the players from the Bengals went over to the Buffalo Bills locker room, and so it was all. I mean, it was just over from there. There was no more football that was going to be played.
No. Well, then we see where Skip got in trouble for his Twitter comment.
I can understand him making that mistake because that's who he is.
Yeah.
What I don't understand is why he wasn't, willing to take it down.
Right.
He said he wasn't taking it down. He said he stand by what he said.
I said, and I'm thinking to myself, here's somebody's life. This ain't the time to stand by what you're saying.
No, you got to eat that.
Yeah.
You just got to eat that.
And
you think
you know what?
You eat that one.
You're right, because I watched that a little bit, that little clip. And the thing is, this is the second time in a short time that he's disrespected Shannon.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Shannon was talking and trying to express. All he said was, "I disagree with the tweet," and he jumped right in there. No, and I stand by mine. It just doubled down, and it was like really disrespect. You know what I'm saying? He already disrespected him talking about Brady and all that. So I just think the dude needs to kind of check himself.
Well, I think Fox Sports is in love with him. And I think that he has got away with some things that have cost a lot of African American people their jobs.
Yeah.
You see, he can do stuff and say stuff and get away with it, Whereas you see a lot of African Americans do it and they through. It's over.
It appears that way. But
and the simple thing, like you said, would have been to just take the tweet down.
Yeah.
And say, I'm sorry that, it came across, blah, blah, blah.
You think I wouldn't have said, I'm sorry, my heart goes out to the young man. That was just in the heat of the moment. I made a mistake. He gonna talk about, and then he talking about, I thought we ain't gonna talk about that today. Just like he ain't never did nothing. Yeah, so it's beyond us. But we'll take this hard pivot and let's move on, and we're gonna talk about goal setting and different things that. Hold on a second. I was trying to share, and I guess I did. We're gonna talk about goal setting for a while. We'll talk about goal setting and how we're gonna navigate this year as men. One thing, and I don't know about y'all, a lot of times I try to set goals for the new year. A lot of us talk about New Year's resolutions, and I think the average New Year resolution might last past the first few days of February. So most people set a New Year's resolution. I'm gonna get in shape. I'm gonna meet. I have high quotas. Do better. All of us want better. I don't know anybody in life who really just don't want better something. Want your children to act better. As men, we want our wives to be better. I ain't gonna express. Maybe it might be better health, whatever. I ain't gonna get in. I might get in trouble. I had fun playing last week with it, but we just want better. And each year, a lot of times, you go to church and we all get the slogans. 2007, we're aiming to heaven. 2008, we're doing great. 2009, we're doing fine. 2010, let's do it again. And then 2020 happened, and we had a moment of clarity where everybody was running around. This is the year of double vision, 20 and 20. This is the year of, you know what I'm saying, focus. And this is the year your dreams and goals going to come true. And boy, it was a year. 2020 brought in a year, not just for one culture or one specific area. It did it for the whole world. And so from that, I just said, we ain't gonna play that no more.
2020 was an exposure too, because you had all these prophets.
Yeah.
Prophesying, and none of them saw COVID coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Or they didn't have any position to be able to say it.
Yeah. Or, and they were actually prophesying things that couldn't happen because of COVID. COVID just wiped all of
it. Wiped the slam out, didn't it?
Yeah, wiped it right out, including the one where it said Trump was going to be reinstated.
Picture that. that might have been what actually overthrew him, the truth be told, but we'll say that for another day. Look, a goal is the object of a person's ambition or effort, an aim or desired result. One more time. To set a goal, it is the object of a person's ambition or effort, an aim or desired result. So when you think about setting goals, Pastor Lawson, what do you think of?
Well, first of all, let me just say that I'm not really into the New Year's resolution thing. Mm-hmm. I understand that in business, that the new year does bring in a new fiscal period. So, So you have goals for that new fiscal period, which typically you set in November, October or November, prior to the year coming in. But as far as personal goals, I believe in goals. I just don't believe you need to wait to the new year to set them. Some goals need to be set during the year. Right. But yeah, I think that everybody should have goals. You should have goals personally. You should have goals for your family, for your children, any organization that you're working with. There should be goals. And they should be strategic. They should be realistic. They should be measurable. Mm-hmm. A lot of times people make goals that you can't measure, so you don't know whether you reached it or not.
That is true.
but yeah, it's a good thing. But just setting the goal is just step one. There's a whole lot of work. You got to put the work in to make sure that you put forth a good strategy to reach your goal and follow through with what needs to be done, to reach that goal.
All right. Elder?
Yeah, I totally agree. First, you have the goal, then you got to come back and put in the how you're going to get there. What are the steps to get there? And so I think it's a two-pronged process, and so I think that's just how it goes. And like Pastor Lawson just said, it should be something that is attainable.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I think we talk about this in the Bible study, but if it's not realistic and achievable, and you can't, if it's too big, it's probably closer to a dream than a goal. So you need to have something attainable that you can get to, and you can see the steps, and if you take those steps, you can reach it, and then you can go further. But you need, you know what I'm saying, that small goal to get to the big goal.
Right.
So it's something you got to work out.
I like what you said. Sometimes you have to have those steps to get to your goal. I love that, Elder. That's true. You said at this stage, this is what it looked like. What we can do, let's talk about maybe 5 things where you can see your goal. I'm gonna write that down in case I want to preach that one day. 5 ways you can see your goal, and in those 5 things, everything that I'm going to talk about start with a C. So number 1, we got about 2 minutes, so we're going to talk about commitment. And then we're going to do it the teacher way, not the preacher way. Preacher way, we want you to hang on to your seat till I get to every C. The 5 C's I'm going to talk to you about is going to be commitment, clarity, the challenge of it, the complexity, and then the things you have to correct. And so we'll call that feedback. Really, I just had to come up with a 5th C. So y'all help. Maybe we'll come have another C, but commitment, and we'll talk about commitment. We have a few moments to do that. Commitment refers to the degree to which an individual is attached to the goal and their determination to reach it. Even when faced with obstacles, goal performance is strongest when people are committed, even more so when said goals are difficult. Once they're committed, if an individual discovers their performance is inadequate, they are likely to increase their effort or change their strategy in order to attain it. When we are less committed to goals, particularly more challenging goals, we increase the likelihood of giving up. A number of factors can influence our commitment levels, namely the perceived desirability of a goal and the perceived ability of achieving it. To be successful, you must possess the desire and comprehensive understanding of what is required to achieve your goal. So we're going to talk about that when we come back from our sponsorship break. We're going to give that to Elder. When we come back, we're going to talk about commitment. So how do you get where you want to go when it comes to goals? You got to be committed, fully committed, if you're going to see it. So out of our C's that we have commitment, we have clarity, we have the challenge, we have the complexity, and we're going to talk about levels of correction, which is feedback. And so when you want to accomplish something, when you want to achieve something, most time when I set a goal, especially if it's a yearly goal, we look at it in 4 quarters. I do anyway. And where am I going? That first quarter is crucial. Where how we're getting and going and making things move. So we want to talk about it from that level. And on that note, you're listening to Real Talk for Real Men, and we're going to try to get all this in before this is out. But we'll see you in a moment. God bless. Come right back with us. Real Talk for Real Men.
What are the Creative Commons licenses and copyright law? What's that about?
Today's legal case is from the files of the Christian Law Association. Here's attorney David Gibbs Jr.
A young lady from Illinois was recently writing a book. After searching the internet, she found some attractive illustrations of famous Bible characters, and she wanted to include these in her book. When she examined these images closely, she discovered that many of them were under Creative Commons licensing restrictions. Not knowing the details of those restrictions, she called our attorneys at the Christian Law Association, who were able to advise her on the exact steps that she would need to take in order to use these materials in her book. Remember, Creative Commons licenses are absolutely protected in the law, and you must go through specific procedures to gain permission to use them. If you have any questions regarding copyright law or Creative Commons licenses, please give us the privilege of helping you or deal with a lawyer locally who's knowledgeable in these areas.
Our free newsletter addresses lots of issues, like the ones we've been discussing today. It's an invaluable tool. Why not sign up for it now at christianlaw.org. christianlaw.org. Awesome radio.
Surely in the valley, God is with me. Surely in the valley, God is with me. Surely in the valley, God is with me.
Okay, we're back. This is Real Talk for Real Men, WBIS 106.9 on Awesome Radio. And we're talking about goal setting.
So, Elder, we're talking about commitment. What thoughts come to your mind when we're talking about commitment?
Well, a couple of thoughts. To be committed, you have to. I'm looking at different things. One thing I was looking at here is that committed people have priorities and they stick to those priorities. You have something in the future you want to do, and you stick to it. One of the things that did come to my mind too, even as I thought about it, was a verse in Proverbs that's really kind of talking about wisdom, but it also says, it talks about keeping your focus. Talks about keeping your focus, and in Proverbs 4, where it's talking about, letting your eyes look straight ahead of you, because sometimes you can get distracted from your commitment. You know what I'm saying? So you got to stay focused on what it is that you're committed to, or who it is you're committed to, and so I think that's a major factor when it comes to your planning. You have to stay focused on it. And so that's kind of one of the things that came to my mind.
Elder, I like that. A lot of times what end up happening, whenever a person with horses, because their vision is so strong, sometimes they'll put what we call blinders. And it's not so much they want to make the horse blind, because you should be the one driving the horse if you're on top. But the thing that they do, they put them up there so that they don't get distracted, so they can have that singular focus. And I like what you said. You definitely need to have singular focus when it comes to commitment. What are the thoughts you have, Pastor Lawson?
Well, when I consider the commitment that the members have to our church organization, I look at three things. That starts with money. When I look around to find out who's faithful to our church, start with the money. Are they paying tithes? Are they giving financially to the church? Number two, time. How much time are they putting into the church, whether it be through attendance or things that you can do for the church from your home, but time is the second thing. How much time are you putting in? And the third thing is talent. Everybody's got talents. God gives everybody talents. There's something you can do.
That's
A lot of people tend to, they'll give to the church, and they will, they will spend time with the church, but they'll use their talent outside the church to make money for themselves. And I say this because there are so many. When you think about gospel artists, and I think gospel artists do a lot to help the body of Christ, but a lot of times gospel artists, they will give to their church, they will spend time with their church, but they'll use their talent in the world because they get more money from the world than they get from the church. I'm not condemning them, but I'm just saying that if you're trying to determine who's faithful to your church, your ministry, what you're doing, then you have to consider where people use their talents. Like some people got good skills when it comes to horticulture, grass, taking care of, but they won't cut the grass at the church, but they'll go out and make money doing that with quality. But when it comes to their church and, they feel like, you know what, if I'm not going to give this talent to the church because it's too valuable. And a lot of people have talents that they just won't give to their organization.
That's true.
And to me, that is a test of faithfulness.
I wanted to preach this sermon, How to Get Away with Murder. You remember that was a big television show back in the day. I wanted to preach how to get away with murder. And I like what you said. If you want to, and I ain't going to stick there because you clearly stated what you stated. But if you really want to hurt your local church, you want to get away with doing your church in, denying that church of your time, your talent, and your treasure is a good way. You can look at that in anything. If you're married and you ain't spending no time, and you're a family, you got a family, you ain't spending no time with your family. They don't get that same sense of humor that you got when you at your job and just having a good time laughing and giggling, and maybe just the way you do things real good on your job. You don't take that home and put no effort into your family. If you don't put any treasure, you go to work, the next thing you know, your car got nice rims and you got all types of lights all over the place, and your lights are out in the house, but you making sure then something your time, your treasure, and your talents do show where your heart is when it comes to commitment. Where those three things can definitely, the Bible says this, where your treasure is,
that's where your heart.
That's where your heart is.
Right.
So those things. So I totally agree with you on that. When it comes to commitment, you want to make sure that in your goals, you want to make sure that your goals are smart. And I'm not going to take a lot of time on that. Anybody can research that. You want to make sure that they're specific. Make your goals specific, narrow for more effective planning. You want to make them measurable, define what evidence will prove, making progress, reevaluate when necessary. Make sure they're attainable or achievable. Like Elder said, make sure you can reasonably accomplish your goal within a certain time frame. You want to make sure they're relevant. Your goals should align with your values and long-term objectives. And you want to make them time-based. So you set a realistic, ambitious end date for task prioritization and motivation.
That's called SMART criteria.
Yeah, SMART criteria for your goals. And the next thing we want to talk about is clarity. We want to talk about being clear. Because like one thing my pastor always say, especially when she would talk to men, she would say that, hey, brothers, you want your wife and family to get to a certain place, they can't follow a parked car. You ain't good. You said they're parked and you ain't doing nothing. Don't expect something, expect nothing. So you want to make sure you're clear. Specific goals put you on a direct course. When a goal is vague, It has limited motivational value. Goal clarity is positively related to overall motivation and satisfaction in the workplace. Set clear, precise, and unambiguous goals that are implicit and can be measured. When a goal is clear in your mind, you have an improved understanding of the task at hand. You know exactly what is required, and the resulting success is a further source of motivation. You want to make sure you're clear. I don't know about y'all, but I have had bosses that will put you on a job without training. And so you're trying to perform a job that you don't even know what it is. You kind of know, but you don't know exactly how to get to it. And so even in whether it's your job and your home or your ministry, you want to make sure that the vision, the Bible says, write the vision, make it plain. Make it plain. Save all your supernatural vernacular to the side. We want to talk where people can understand you. Nobody want to hear about the magnanimity of the justified regalness of your calamity, because that's really what it is. But you want to make sure that you talk clear. Whenever there's a chance to be simple, do it. Matter of fact, I'm throwing a lot of acronyms at you. Keep it short and simple. That's the KISS method. Keep it short and simple. Keep it concise. So we want to be clear. And when we come back, we're going to let Elder explain to us more about clarity when we come back from after the sponsorship break. So to be clear with you, you're listening to 106.9 FM, Real Talk, Real Men. We'll see you after the sponsorship break.
Partial funding for this program is brought to you by Blessed Hands Car Wash and Detail Plus, 2016 Chestnut Street, Greenville. Vehicle inspections, U-Haul rentals, spick and span hand vehicle wash and detail. That's Blessed Hands, 252-413-0609. Open Monday through Saturday, 8 o'clock a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. Blessed Hands Car Wash and Detail Plus, 2016 Chestnut Street, Greenville, 252-413-0609. Thank you, Blessed Hands Car Wash and Detail Plus, for your support.
Hi, I'm Pastor Jeffrey Cox, pastor of God's Way Church of God in Christ in Kinston, North Carolina, and I'm listening to Awesome Radio 106.9 FM.
Surely in the family, God is with me. Surely in the family, God is with me. Surely in the family, God is with me.
Well, we're back on Real Talk for Real Men. We're talking about goal setting for you, not just your year, but for your life. And we got to our second C, which is clarity. Elder, can you talk to us a little bit about clarity?
Yeah. Speaking of clarity, let me clarify. I'm sure you brothers was talking about the church, but you don't want to put folks on a guilt trip. And I'm sure that's not what y'all were trying to do. When you were talking about not using the gifts or talents at the church. So I just wanted to clarify that. I'm sure that's not what y'all were doing. Anyway, I'm just clarity is just kind of making it plain, and a lot of people believe that you should write it down. If you got a goal or your plan, you should write it down. When you write it down, it kind of puts it into something that you can look at. You can see it. When you kind of get off track, you go back and look at it. So and just make it plain, make it so you understand it, and go from there. I'm gonna keep it simple.
All right, Pastor Lawson, how do you make sure that when you're setting goals, you're clear?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you, Elder. We were not trying to make anybody feel guilty, but we were talking about commitment. And if you want to distinguish level of commitments, you got to have something to look at, right?
But if you're going to be objective.
Yeah, got to have something to look at, a standard. But when it comes to clarity, one of the things that I think about, let's say that you set a goal and you say, and your goal is we're going to build a house. And then you ask 5 of the people that's working with you to draw the house we're going to build. you're going to get 5 different pictures because you weren't clear when you said we're going to build a house. You weren't clear. And that's why everybody that's working with you got a different picture of what the house is going to look like. So when you make it clear, when you make it plain, then you put those kind of details in your goal, not real small, minute details, but the top level details, so that everybody can see the picture of what this goal looks like.
Yeah, because you need a blueprint.
Yeah, a blueprint that's got all of the main ingredients, so that everybody can be on the same page in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. And when you talk about clarity, you are using that same SMART criteria that you talked about earlier. You want to be specific. When you say the goal is to build a house, you might want to be specific. Small house, square feet, something that tells you what this house is going to look like in terms of size.
That's good. In
terms of color. We're going to build a brick house. We're going to build a wood house. That
igloo.
Down south in the summertime, we're going to build an igloo. So it makes it clear to the people that's working with you what we are doing. It's clear to me what we are doing, because your goal has a lot of clarity in it. You've already told me how you're going to measure it. You already told me the square footage, so we know how big it's going to be. You already told me what it cost. I mean, when there's a scripture that says you don't set out to build a house and then you don't count up the cost.
Yeah.
Because you might get halfway through and run out of money.
That's true.
So you got to talk about, the value, how much money is going to be put. You got to be relevant. It's got to be something that's relevant to something that's needed. You don't just go out and say, we're going to do this, but there is no need for it.
That's right.
And it's got to be timely. We're going to build a house this year. We're going to build a house this month. So clarity includes all those things that gives the people working with you a good picture of what it's going to look like, a blueprint of what it's going to look like.
That is so good. Elder, did you have anything on that? Any more you want to add? Okay.
No, I think that's good. That's good.
Yes, sir. So when we talk about commitment, we're talking about being attached to your goal. When you're talking about clarity, you're talking about the specifics of the goal. Now the next part, we're talking about a challenge, a degree of goals difficulty. You want to be able to have a good understanding of how difficult this goal truly is. Like for me, I'm going to be quite honest. I set a very simple goal this year, and part of it came out of a training. I went to Chicago and met with some of the higher up people in the Assemblies of God ministries completely. And one of the guys, I think he was the, for lack of a better word, the vice president of the organization. They had another term for him. I think it might have been something superintendent. And one of the things he talked about, if you were talking about churches, he was talking about that the average church in America don't have 5 new souls a year. Most churches don't win 5 new souls a year. But let me move backward. Let me step back. The way they measure things for their churches, do you have 5 new souls coming to your ministry? Then he talks about having 5 people filled with the Holy Spirit and 5 baptisms. And do your church at least give $100 to missions every year? They said if you don't meet those 4 criteria, they said that your church is, pretty much on the way to dying. So that's how they measured it. So then guess what I did? I said my criteria is to win as many souls as I can, but to be specific, Lord, let me walk away with at least 5 people saved this year that are committed to the church. So then I said, I want to have 5 baptisms this year. And then y'all get the point. And our church definitely give over $100 to missions each year, and a lot of times we've given to Liberia, we've given to Haiti, we've given to the Bahamas. Most of the time, it's behind a crisis, but we've given to Liberia almost for at least 5 years. Let me just say that 5 years to their back to school. After we have a back to school project for our neighborhood, our community, whatever's left over, we generally ship that over to Liberia, to the young people in Liberia. So, with that being said, let me move on. We're talking about challenging. Goals must be challenging yet attainable. Challenging goals can improve performance through increased self-satisfaction and a motivation to find suitable strategies to push our skills to the limit. Conversely, goals that are not within our ability level may not be achievable, leading to the feelings of dissatisfaction and frustration. We are motivated by achievement and the anticipation of achievement. If we know a goal is challenging yet believe it is within our ability to accomplish, we are more likely to be motivated to complete a task. But let me throw this other part in because I want to stay in scripture bounds. The Bible also, for you people of faith. Now, I'm talking about y'all natural people, that's for you. For us people that are of faith, the Bible tells us, not by power, nor by might, but by my spirit. The Lord has something about him that will challenge you and put you on the place where you feel uncomfortable all the time. And that's my life. Feel uncomfortable and like he want to stretch me to the point of where I feel like giving up. I hate to tell y'all that, but I might be looking for a therapist soon. These last 3 years have didn't wash me on the gentle cycle. It put me on the heavy load. So I've been roughed and ready and tumbled and thrown all over the place. And so, but I got to be quite honest. So a lot of things that we're really believing God for, that he tells you anyway, it's going to be done by his spirit. So I want to go and pass that to you, Pastor Lawson, this time, and then tell them.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one because, 47 years ago, the Lord told me, I'm going to get you to heaven. Mm. And then he began to reveal to me all the things
in between
that I had to go through, the challenges. You get excited about going to heaven. You get excited about being saved. And then you start meeting those challenges. Yeah. The good news is he gives you, he takes you through a first grade level, second grade level. Yeah. You don't get saved and he just puts you on, give you the top level challenges.
The Bible says God give you strength for the day.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. You can handle sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. So, but challenges are very important. It's good that if you set a goal and you can identify the challenges up front, because don't tell me we're going to build a new church and then every Sunday you're asking me I need everybody to give $1,000 every Sunday. I need everybody. You should, you know what? If you'd have told me that up front, I would not have consented to this goal. You see what I'm saying? Because
let's stay honest.
You're doing too much.
I got you.
So yeah, challenges are very important, and this is something that a lot of people leave out when they start the new year and say, "I'm going to lose 40 pounds," and they don't consider the challenges.
Yeah,
and they don't lose 40 pounds.
Yeah.
So it's challenges are so important, and you can't overstate it.
Elder.
I don't know. I think if there's no challenge, you got to wonder if it's worth it. You know what I'm saying?
That's good.
There needs to be a challenge, Yeah. I think that's one of the things, just kind of to skip over, to look at one of the things a lot of people missed about the Deion Sanders thing. He's always been a guy that likes a challenge throughout his career. If you ever watched him, you know what I'm saying? He got to the top of being the cornerback, being what I'm saying? And then he said, well, baseball, I can do this too, and everything has been a challenge. And I think this move that he just made was another challenge. You know what I'm saying? And I think the idea is that, hey, it makes it worth it when you got, it's almost like you got to fight there, you got to deal with things. If it's something that you can just do without the challenge, it's almost like it's not it's not a serious goal because it's something you can already do. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So I just think, I think the challenge is important.
Well,
because it also says, let me finish with this.
Yes, sir.
It also says you don't have everything. You don't know. You know the goal and you know where you want to get to, but you don't know all the things, ins and outs that you got to go through, but you're willing to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the challenge is.
So we're going to tack the two things together. I talked about complexity. We're going to add change to complexity too. No, the challenge. Well, we talked about challenge. Well, let's talk about the complexity. An overly complex task introduced demands that may mute goals, and complex goals that lie out of our skill level may become overwhelming and negatively impact morale, productivity, and motivation. The time scale for such a goal should be realistic. Allowing sufficient time to work toward a goal allows opportunities to reassess the goal complexity while reviewing and improving performance. Even the most motivated of people can become disillusioned if the task complexity is too great for their skills. One thing I want to add to that when it comes to just how having a goal that's real complex can undermotivate you, it can impact your morale, the productivity and motivation. But I want to also speak to the fact that sometime a goal you have might put you into where you should be. It might be complex and you say, well, I can't solve everything. But if I take care of this one thing, I'd do great. Because like if it was me, I'd be one of those people say, I want to feed all, like those pageants where people get up and talk and they say, I want to solve world hunger. And the truth of the matter, I would love to do that. I've been on the missionary field in a country where there was hardly nothing. So I ain't gonna call out the country, but I've been there. It impacted my mind as a 19-year-old. Mm-hmm. I went there when I was 19. And when I went there and I saw things that I took for granted, and I looked at the children and hunger and couldn't go to school, and we walked into a particular orphanage for young women. And somebody told us that somebody that lived in the area, not the people that was running it. You could actually, matter of fact, we were on one side of the house, and that house that we went to looked like it was abandoned, and there was a holes in the wall. And I'm looking, I'm like, this is an orphanage? And we heard a young lady, I think she was getting beat, and we were like way on the other side. It was a big house, but you heard all that screaming. And I was sitting there listening to that screaming. I'm like, well, what in the world is going on? Because these are young women. These ain't like little children. And I wanted to react. And then there was another point. We were passing out food and medicine and stuff for education. And while we were doing it, a young woman, probably in her 30s, got a pen, and there was a little 13-year-old girl, took a ballpoint pen, for those that are looking on television, and stuck half of that pen in that girl's side. I ain't never seen, she hit that girl so hard with that thing and it was still in her side. And we had to, take care of her. And nobody was coming with no ambulance. They wanted an ambulance to call. Well, this was before cell phones and stuff. And the little girl was like just yelling and screaming. I said, and the woman walked away cussing. I said, wow, she gonna do this while we preaching and passing out food and medicine. That woman caught that little girl, and the girl was just crying and crying and crying. And I got mad. I was 19. I was gonna jump in, and somebody grabbed me by my arm. I said, hold on, you stay out of this. And then somebody whispered in my ear, they still looking for her husband. They think she cut him up, threw him out and this ain't America. Tremaine, this ain't America. And I sat there and I had to deal with that in my mind. I said, oh my God. So anywho, but going back to my dream of feeding the whole world, that kind of took me off the dribble. But part of that is I can't feed the whole world, but I can feed one or two people. And if I, when the ministry's strong, we might just feed 10, 20, so that's what I'm saying. You want to set something. Sometimes you have a big goal, but you just get into the vein of what you can do. And we call that complexity. Now, we only got 3 minutes, so can y'all take a few moments and touch that if you want to?
I'm going to say one thing that came to my mind of reaching a goal. When I went into the Marine Corps at 19, I was, the goal was to become a Marine. But when I went to boot camp, I didn't start out as a Marine. I started out as a recruit that had to go through some things that were challenging to get to the point where I was sharp and pressed and ready to go. So I look at that as how the process works.
That's good, Elder.
Some goals are indeed unrealistic. And to the extent that the maker of the goal understands the challenges, complexities that's going to be involved in reaching that goal, then they can make a realistic goal. But if you're just making a goal, a generalization of something that you think would be a good thing to do, or you've seen somebody else do, you have to have some idea of what's going to be involved in reaching that goal. You got to count up the cost.
Yes, you do.
You got to understand the challenges. You got to know the complexities. Otherwise, it could be unrealistic for you to even have that goal.
That is so good. That is so good. Well, we're going to land on our feet. But when we talked about corrections or feedback, goal setting is more effective in the presence of immediate feedback. Feedback, including internal feedback, helps to determine the degree to which a goal is being met and how you are progressing. Unambiguous goal feedback ensures that action can be taken if necessary. If performance falls below the standard required to achieve a goal, feedback allows us to reflect upon our ability and set new, more attainable goals. When such feedback is delayed, we cannot evaluate effectiveness of our strategies promptly, leading to potential reduction in the rate of progress. When we perceive our progress towards a goal is adequate, or as adequate, we feel capable of learning new skills and setting more challenging future goals. So we want to do that for our life, not just this new year. So on that note, gentlemen, we've had a good show. You've been listening to Real Talk for Real Men on Awesome Radio, 106.9 FM WBIS on your radio dial. You can find us on Alexa, Google, and other places. We'll see you next week. Love you. God bless.